Within NBA history, there have been many brother duos who've made quite the name for themselves. My favorites are the Lopez brothers, specifically Robin. He looks like Sideshow Bob and his hook is a top 3 shot in NBA history. The best brother duo of all time though is definitely the Gasol brothers. Pau saved the Lakers and got his jersey retired, while Mark will soon also get his jersey retired because of the massive impact he had with the grit and grind Grizzlies. The Gasol brothers are great, but there's another duo that could possibly dethrone them. You know that Victor Wembanyama guy? Yeah, well, he's having quite possibly the greatest rookie season ever, which I'll get into later in the video, but it just so happens that there's another one of these fuckers. Wemby has a 6'8", 17-year-old brother. The dude didn't start playing basketball until around COVID. Pre-COVID, he was a prospect in the sport of handball. He rarely played basketball growing up because all his friends were avid handballers. The only time he'd really hoop was with his mom because she was a former professional basketball player who organized training sessions for children. Along with his mom and Victor, their family tree is ridiculously athletic. His dad Felix ran track, his sister Eve won a U16 FIBA Women's Championship, and his grandfather was a rugged 6'7" dunking center back in the day. With all this athleticism in his bloodline, Oscar wasn't destined to be a god in just handball. His boredom made sure of that. When the pandemic hit, just like the rest of us, he had a lot of time on his hands and wanted to try something new, so he decided to give basketball a shot. Solid business decision. Handball's cool and all, but probably won't pay the bills or get you laid. Since he started hooping, Oscar's become just like Victor in the sense that he doesn't let his height affect how he plays. Jason Williams was a big inspiration for his game. The 6'1" guard was a magician with the rock, pulling off wildly creative moves that would make the crowd go absolutely batshit crazy. Insane no-look behind the back passes, crazy handles, dirty fakes. If Oscar gets to the NBA and hits an elbow pass, I'll blow my brains out. I'm kidding. Well, only kidding if my Hawks draft him. As of right now, Oscar's slated as the 24th pick in the 2027 draft, but he could enter the 2026 draft if he's ready by then. In terms of production, that's where we're sort of left in the dark. With him being just 2 years in a basketball and 17 years old, there isn't much information regarding his on-court play. But I did find 2 sources listing some stats. One of them tracked his performance during the Adidas Next Generation tournament. He played a grand total of 36 minutes in 3 games, grabbing 8 rebounds and scoring 7 points. In terms of how he scored, he made 2 two-pointers, 3 out of his 4 free throws, and missed all 8 of the threes he took. Because he's so young and playing with dudes a couple years older than him, his stats are whatever. He's not going to be putting up Victor numbers just yet. What did stand out to me though was his D. Pause. He averaged nearly 2 steals a game. His brother's a defensive enigma, so with Oscar displaying similar qualities, his potential could be wild. Or he'll end up like Thanasis or Larry Jordan, who knows. While most of the eyes are on Victor, Oscar doesn't feel like he lives in his shadow. He said his goal is to not do exactly like him and instead write his own story, one that is as beautiful as possible. Well, with that main character type shit quote, we know the dude ascended the astral plane just like his brother. Those dudes just think deeper than us mortals. Speaking of the alien, as I mentioned earlier, he might be having the greatest rookie season ever. His health was by far the biggest concern of his going into the draft, but he's played over 60 games this season. A huge reason for this is the time and effort he puts into his body. He shares a very similar mindset as our heavenly father LeBron James. Both dudes fully understand the benefits of keeping their meat vehicle chugging along. One thing that really shows Victor's commitment to his health is his flexibility. It's actually freaky. I can't even touch my toes, and this guy can do advanced stripper moves. When I first saw him play, I thought it was inevitable his twig legs would snap. I believe this because of that one video Jimmy High Roller made. If you haven't seen it, it's basically about how players 7'3" and taller are virtually bound to have a career filled with injuries. Just think about it. There aren't many players in the NBA who are really good and 7'1" or taller. Off the top of my head, I think it's just Rudy Gobert and Tingus Pingus. And Tingus Pingus, who's shorter than Wemby, has had a career filled with injuries. The cold hard facts led me to think Wemby was destined to follow the same path. While this still could be true, there was one thing I was forgetting. Wemby's not human. After I slowly began to realize this, his chances of breaking the 7-foot curse seemed much more likely. No way in hell Yao Ming could bust it down like Wemby. Along with avoiding injury, he's already one of the best players in the league. He's exceeded everyone's pre-draft expectations, which is extremely impressive because if you remember, people were brown-nosing him so hard, saying he was going to take over the NBA right away. I knew he was going to be good, but I thought people were getting way too ahead ahead of themselves. Turns out I was wrong. The dude is doing things nobody's ever seen before. So far this season, he's averaging 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3.5 assists, close to 1.5 steals, and a league-leading 3.5 blocks per game. Second place for blocks per game is held by the Sheriff, Walker Kessler Ranger, and he's averaging an entire block less than Wemby. I get that Victor is 8'12" and blocks come easier to him, but the rate at which he's rejecting dudes is unprecedented for a 20-year-old. He's swatting shots like prime Serge Ibaka. His elite rim protection along with his ability to steal the ball gives him an extremely intriguing case to win Defensive Player of the Year. Within the last 15 years, the only other dude to average 3 blocks and 1 steal is last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. To be just 20 years old and doing that is incredible. While his individual defense is worthy, he has 2 problems. His team is awful and Rudy Gobert is the heavy favorite. The French rejection has improved leaps and bounds from his lackluster 2023 season. Last year, he was relentlessly cyberbullied because the Wolves traded an army for him and they couldn't even make the playoffs. However, this year he's restored his honor by commanding Minnesota to become the league's best defense. That's all fine and dandy, but he's averaging just 2 blocks and half a steal a night. I get defense is a lot more than just blocks and steals, but the difference between Gobert and Wemby in that category is ridiculous. So far, Gobert has 40 steals and 137 blocks. Meanwhile, Wemby eclipses him with 216 blocks and 79 steals. Don't want to nitpick, but Wemby's also played 2 less games. While it's definitely a possibility, it's still highly unlikely Wemby wins it. There's never been a player younger than 23 to ever win Defensive Player of the Year. Despite this, it's still highly impressive he was able to even have a case as a rookie. The only 2 guys I can think of who are as dominant defensively as a rookie are Tim Duncan and David Robinson. During Tim's rookie year, he came in 5th for Defensive Player of the Year voting and made the All-Defensive Second Team, while David averaged nearly 4 blocks and also made the All-Defensive Second Team. With Wemby on track to make a defensive team as well as come in 2nd for Defensive Player of the Year, this brings up the question of whether or not he's the greatest rookie of all time. The short answer to this is no. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 38 points and 27 rebounds during his rookie year while also winning MVP. In addition to him, there's Oscar Robertson, who averaged damn near a triple-double his rookie year, and Kareem, who put up 29, 15, and 4 while improving the Bucks so much they won 30 more games. But as we all know, the 60s and 70s were a completely different era, so it's hard to compare Wemby's rookie year to theirs. If we just look at rookies since the 80s, I'd say he has a really strong case. Since 1980, there's been quite a few rookies who have been as dominant as Wemby. The first 2 are Magic and Bird. These 2 dudes were rookies the same year and both became superstars right away, saving the NBA from imploding. Larry won Rookie of the Year over Magic and came in 4th for MVP, averaging a super efficient 21-10 along with nearly 2 steals, leading Boston to over 60 wins. Meanwhile, Magic put up 18, 8, 7, and over 2 steals while helping LA win the championship. Along with them, Michael Jordan, David Robinson, Shaq, and Tim Duncan all were insane as rookies. Mike averaged damn near 30, David Robinson improved the Spurs by 45 wins, Shaq was unstoppable, and Timmy D was an All-NBA first team member. Comparing Wemby's rookie year to all of theirs, I think it's reasonable to say he was on par with them, but there are way too many things to take into account to be able to say he's the greatest. With that being said, it's ridiculous we are witnessing a potential top 10 player in NBA history kick ass in real time. I'm not a Spurs fan, but I gotta admit, I'm rooting for the dude, as well as his brother. They seem like genuine people. That's all for this one. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Bye, guys.